down, you can't fold and you can't bend. Y'all be playing it safe and I be going for the win. Remember back when they was doubting on the kid. Now they tuned in cause my game too legit.
Fantasy Airlines Nation, Airline Nation, Fantasy Airlines for the nation. I'm a headliner. I'm a headliner.
Yo, analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. Y'all stuck on third down. Your content's plain Jane. Headliners on top now. We gonna move and change. Podcast off the rip. Draft guide, so legit. Fantasy world, our game tight. You know we about that chub life. Stuck in a rut and you need some motivation. Head to the channel for this Headliner Nation.
I'm a headliner.
Yo, what up, nation? Monday morning, time for the overreaction show. Talking about what happened in week 14. It's crazy to say that we are through week 14 after this evening with only 4 weeks left to go, maybe 3, depending on how your league is set up. We still count week 18 in stats. That's an argument for another time, though. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know how it is here. We're going to hop right into it. We're going to be talking about what happened in week 14, the recap, anything interesting that I see, go through some notes, things of that nature. Then when we get to the end of the show, I'll talk about some hits and misses from this past week. Hopefully everyone is doing well. Hopefully everybody got wins. I know some of you are still waiting on results from tonight to really secure those spots. So we'll see what happens tonight, but let's go ahead and hop into it. Tampa Bay and Atlanta will be our first matchup. And 100% props to Rachaad White. Tough run defense for Atlanta. And he goes off for 102 yards, 2 receptions for 33 yards, and gets that touchdown. Props to him. He's been much better over the last couple of weeks in terms of running the football, which is really where he has to get better if he's going to take that next step. So good job to him. Great game. Cade Otton is going to be in today's waiver wire show. Make sure you keep an eye on that because he has some really good matchups coming up. He scored a touchdown this past week. Continues to play more snaps than anybody in football at the tight end position. Another 66 snaps played this week. That was more than Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. For the Atlanta Falcons, Kyle Pitts. Look at you, Kyle Pitts, coming around at the end of the season, scoring a touchdown. I still think Sam Laporta has more touchdowns this season in his rookie year than Kyle Pitts has in his career. Drake London had a really good game as well. 11 targets. 7 targets to Jonnu Smith. Didn't end up doing anything really with those again as well. They did run more 12 personnel though with Pitts and Jonnu Smith as 2 tight ends. So instead of having Kyle Pitts kind of line up in that slot role or outside, they were lining up more as a 2 tight end set and 12 personnel. Will be interesting to see what happens with that. But one thing that you want to keep an eye on too, Pitts is playing 60% or over 65% of offensive snaps when they are behind. He comes out when they are leading though. He plays under 50% of the snaps when they're ahead. So that's something to keep an eye on. Bijan, okay day, obviously. Could have been a little bit better, but you know, missing Vita Vea in that matchup really helped them. Hold on just a second. Let me pull up one other thing real fast. half PPR. It is. Okay, so half PPR. Bijan finishes at number 8. Like I said, could have been a little bit better, especially running the football. Again, not as good as we would have liked efficiency-wise. How about Ezekiel Elliott being the running back 1 last week? Hopefully you all jumped on board with Zeke. I mentioned him a couple of times last week where I was like, man, we got to, it doesn't matter if you own Zeke or if you don't, like, it doesn't matter if you own Ramondre or you don't, like, get Zeke and put him in your lineup. So CHB, I am 100% on board with you. Why are we not giving the ball to James Cook more? We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's look here. Let's keep it going. Oh, and let me give Rachaad White one more prop here. His longest run this past week was 12 yards. So you'll hear me talk about big play dependency a little bit, and you've heard me mention that with Jerome Ford and some of my issues with him this year. So Rachaad White, his longest carry was 12 yards, and on 25 carries, he had 25 carries in this game, and still averaged over 4 yards per carry. So listen, I know you guys give me crap because I give on Rachaad White so much. I'm willing to give the props when he hits what I'm hoping for, and he did exactly that. He had the touchdown, he had good runs, he had solid runs, he didn't rely on one big play. He was good throughout the entire day. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come for him. I'm not rooting against him. I'm not. But good week for him this week, all around, efficiency-wise as well. Good for him. Baltimore and Los Angeles. That game didn't end up being impacted by the weather as much as I think we anticipated with the notes we were given prior to game time. I don't know. It didn't end up looking nearly as bad for me. Maybe it was. But yeah, I will keep an eye on that. Let me see here. It was basically a full workload, split between Keaton Mitchell and Gus Edwards. Keaton Mitchell only had 5 more snaps. Justice Hill had 29 snaps. He actually had more than Keaton Mitchell and Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards probably now for the foreseeable part of the fantasy playoff future, probably going to have to move to a sit. Because he got out snapped by Mitchell and Hill. Now, he did carry the ball 6 times. Mitchell carried it 9 times. Justice Hill 0. Only 2 targets for Justice Hill. So, Justice Hill isn't even, doing anything when he gets on the field. He's just taking snaps away from Gus Edwards. Now, if the Ravens can get into the red zone more times than not, then we'll probably see Gus Edwards score, but for now we kind of probably have to back off him. I probably would say Keaton Mitchell is still a high risk because he had been getting more playing time, but then this week he kind of lost it a little bit as well. A lot of close or playing from behind, you'll see Justice Hill on the field a little bit more right now. Mitchell didn't see the early down work either. A couple of weeks ago, Mitchell saw the early down work over Gus Edwards, and he didn't really see that this time either. So it's really Mitchell has the big playability. Gus Edwards really doesn't right now. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But Baltimore's schedule to end the season is not great. Odell Beckham Jr. will be in the waiver wire video today. He is absolutely a guy that we should be running after right now after a big day. Tutu Atwell went into the concussion protocol. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, they did look a little bit more healthy this week than what they have as long term. Hunter Long, he came out to replace Tyler Higbee. Then he left with a knee injury in the second quarter. He had to be carted off. Probably going to miss some time because of that. Detroit at Chicago. Not really much to say about the Detroit Lions right now. Their defense is just worn down. Unfortunately, they don't have the depth or the pass rush that they need. And that's going to, if they do finish it off and get to the playoffs, it probably is going to be a quick exit for them. They are worn down bad. DJ Moore had a good day, scored a rushing touchdown, his first career rushing touchdown. It will be in the waiver wire video today as well, but Dante Foreman absolutely was the lead back. Maybe it had something to do with Chicago playing out in front a majority of the game, but we'll see if that changes. But he absolutely was the lead guy there. Jahmyr Gibbs was significantly on the field more often than what David Montgomery was. He only had one more carry than Montgomery, but he played 41 snaps to David Montgomery's 23. Probably, again, part of the game plan. They talked about it on they talked about it a little bit during the game yesterday, that they were doing some different things with Jahmyr Gibbs to help open up some wide receivers. You saw it on the Josh Reynolds touchdown. But for Jahmyr Gibbs, like I continue to say, David Montgomery is the safer running back. Jahmyr Gibbs has the highest upside. Both of these guys are startable. Unfortunately, David Montgomery just didn't get it done. Chicago's defense is definitely playing a lot better right now, though, than they did at the beginning of the year. So kudos to them for stopping the run this past week. They got a matchup with Denver coming up, which should help. Indianapolis at Cincinnati. I know a lot of people are going to be running after Chase Brown. Shows some big playability. Still only played 18 snaps compared to Joe Mixon's 38. Mixon ran double the amount of routes that Chase Brown did. He had one more target, and he had double the carries that Chase Brown did. So Chase Brown is definitely seeing some touches for sure, but he's not taking much away from Joe Mixon, and Joe Mixon is really a guy that is solidifying our running back position down the stretch here, given the fact that we didn't spend a whole lot on draft day for him. He's had a really nice low RB2 floor basically all season long. So if you've been starting him as an RB2 or a flex and relying on that, you've been fine. If you've been expecting more, then you've been disappointed, but you shouldn't have been expecting more from him. But where you drafted him, he's going to be a nice potential league winner down the stretch. Michael Pittman continues to be the guy for Indianapolis. Tons of targets, tons of production. Josh Downs probably going to be out of my lineup for the time being. Hasn't gotten the target since coming back from his injury. Zach Moss, yikes. I had him pretty high the last couple of weeks, and he did absolutely nothing, which is crazy to think he did absolutely nothing in a game against Cincinnati, whose run defense has been subpar at best this season. Zach Moss at this point is not the league winner that a lot of people thought he was going to be, with Jonathan Taylor missing a parts at the end of the season here. For me, for Zach Moss, definitely going to be a tough play moving forward, but you also might be in a position where you don't have anybody else to play. You might not have another choice either. So we'll keep an eye on that. Colts are using 4 people at tight end, so we haven't been looking at them at all. Jake Browning left and then was able to return. Zach Moss is still playing more snaps than a majority of running backs right now, so unfortunately, he is going to have to stay in fantasy lineups. Hopefully, he can figure it out. Look at Evan Ingram and David Njoku for Jacksonville and Cleveland. Holy cow, the tight ends absolutely exploding in this game. Absolutely love to see it. David Njoku, definitely a guy. Brought him up, and I talked about him in the shows this week about, hey, hopefully they continue to feed him the ball and give him the targets. 8 targets, which was second to only Amari Cooper this past week. Love to see it. Evan Ingram, 12 targets, second only to Zay Jones this past week. Calvin Ridley had less targets than Zay Jones and Evan Ingram, while playing more snaps than anybody else. Going to continue to be a boomer bust guy. So unfortunately, that's just something that we're going to have to deal with. So they do get Tampa Bay next week, though, so it could be Calvin Ridley week next week. So keep that in mind too. And hopefully, I don't exactly know what happened with Trevor Lawrence, but he came back, he played. Hopefully he comes back and plays well next week as well. Travis Etienne continues to be a guy that is limited with a rib injury. I mean, he's playing on game day, but he's being limited throughout the week, and you can tell that he is experiencing issues with that injury. So we are going to have to see. We are going to have to see over the next few weeks here if he can continue to get more healthy. My hope is that is a yes. Now, he scored a touchdown. He finished as the RB12. He gave you 15 half PPR points, only 35 rushing yards, though. So he's still a guy that's in that area, right? He's still a guy that we're looking at being inside the top 12 or maybe just outside of it. So, yeah, when you take a look at all these guys and what they're doing right now, there's only, one guy really that you can put in your lineup every single week and you're like, yep, I know exactly what I'm going to get from him. That's Christian McCaffrey. Down the stretch here, Rachaad White continues to play very well. Joe Mixon's playing very well. Bijan still not giving the upside that you would need, but hasn't been bad over the last several weeks. Gibbs continues to be pretty decent. Kyron Williams still finished as the RB14. Steelers quarterback Kenny Pickett has been ruled out for Saturday. Okay, so Kenny Pickett's already out for next week. New Orleans and Carolina. Carolina continues to be a dumpster fire, so there's not much that we can talk about or say there. I'm not really worried about Carolina. We're not playing anybody from Carolina except Chuba Hubbard. If you want to play Chuba Hubbard, go ahead. He did finish as, I believe it was RB20. And played 77% of the snaps. So he is getting the workload right now. Miles Sanders is not even being thought of. 62 snaps for Chuba Hubbard compared to 17 for Miles Sanders. 24-5 in routes run, 2-0 to targets, 23-10 in carries. So Chuba Hubbard kind of makes his way into the, I would say, top 25 based on just volume alone. Upside doesn't go much higher than that, though. Unfortunately, right now, with the injuries and people being banged up, the Saints are kind of all over the place. Chris Olave had an opportunity for a potential better game. He still scored a touchdown. Alvin Kamara had 3 receptions for a -11 receiving yards, but he did score a touchdown. So at least he got that for us. Jimmy Graham scoring another touchdown. Whatever. Nothing else there. Houston, obviously, against New York looked awful between weather and injuries and a tough defense. It's just there was nothing to really see there. Dameon Pierce actually Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary in week 13 essentially split snaps. So we thought, okay, Dameon Pierce is being worked back into it. Dameon Pierce didn't even get as many snaps as Dare Alawala Bing Bang. If you've been around a while, that is a throwback nickname around here. So Dare Agmanwale getting more snaps than what Dameon Pierce even did. Devin Singletary, the absolute lead back there. Had him inside the top 30 this week. I didn't have him super high because of that potential difference there, but my hope was that Singletary would put together a decent day through the air, target-wise. Ended up finishing as number 15. He did have a rushing touchdown, only 3 targets, but played well. So Devin Singletary, might be a guy not super high ceiling the rest of the year, but still a floor. He's playing 80% of the snaps. So we're gonna have to keep an eye on Nico Collins as well, because he was ruled out at halftime after leaving in the first quarter, and that calf injury could end up leading to some missed time. CJ Stroud is in the concussion protocol, I believe, still as of right now. Dalton Schultz was still out. Minnesota Vikings and Las Vegas Raiders. We're keeping an eye, obviously, on Justin Jefferson. He had to leave early. He even ended up going to the hospital. Jordan Addison played 69 snaps, only saw 3 targets, while KJ Osborne saw 51 snaps, but got 7 targets. So KJ Osborne will be in today's waiver wire video. For Las Vegas, taking a look at their snap counts. If I had to guess, with Josh Jacobs leaving with their injury, this will be in the waiver wire video again. I would lean towards Amir Abdullah over Zamir White this week. So we'll keep an eye, obviously, on Justin Jefferson's health. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on Josh Jacobs' health, because those both could be things that we move forward with. Madison got hurt in that game as well, so Ty Chandler is going to be a guy that we potentially pick up. Still be the he's Josh Jacobs, talked about that. Nick Mullins ended up coming out in favor of Josh Dobbs. The Dobbs magic might be over with in Minnesota. That was tough to watch for a majority of the game. San Francisco beat the brakes off Seattle. San Francisco, Brandon Ayuk had a big day. Deebo Samuel had a big day. George Kittle had a big day. All three of those guys, along with Christian McCaffrey, seeing as much as we would like in terms of volume, upside. All of them are startable right now. All of them are fantasy assets. George Kittle continues to be the most volatile one, because if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's probably going to have a subpar week, but he scored another touchdown for us. For Seattle, DK obviously got thrown out of that game. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet were both questionable for the game, but ended up playing. Kenneth Walker outsnapped Charbonnet 33-25. He ran more routes than Charbonnet. He had more targets than Charbonnet. He only had 2 less carries than Charbonnet. Hopefully we can get maybe Kenneth Walker going here over the last couple of games. But unfortunately they play Philadelphia next week. But when you take a look at it, again, Walker played more snaps, ran more routes, and had more targets. So I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, Zach Charbonnet could be used in the passing game. Based on these numbers here, it looks like Kenneth Walker is a better bet in the passing game. So we'll see what he can maybe do for some checkdowns there for Philly, or against Philly. There's not much else to say about San Francisco. Buffalo and Kansas City. Gabe Davis only got 2 targets. I know a lot of people super frustrated with him once again. Jerick McKinnon got his touchdown. CEH outsnapped him, but only by 2 snaps. But CEH did run 15 routes. Jerick McKinnon ran 18 routes. 4 targets for each of them, 11 carries to 4 for CEH over Jerick McKinnon. I included Jerick McKinnon in this week's video because I feel like Jerick McKinnon, and by this week's video, I mean this week's waiver wire video, because I do believe Jerick McKinnon has more fantasy value next week than CEH. But if we continue to see an even split there, if Isaiah Pacheco were to miss again, CEH may be the guy if we need somebody here at the end of the season. Rashee Rice continues to do very well. Kadarius Toney is just going to get cut and slammed in a room somewhere and locked up. Dawson Knox comes back, which I definitely feel like is going to potentially limit Kincaid's playing time, but Kincaid still played over 75% of the snaps. So Kincaid played 60 snaps compared to Dawson Knox 36, 43 compared to Knox 17, 7 targets compared to Knox 3. So it's not really limiting his potential too much. It could steal a little bit of volume, but not really enough. Unfortunately, he only had 21 yards on 5 receptions. So it wasn't a great game, obviously, but he's still fantasy viable based on those numbers right there. Now, he came back into the game. Well, he was reportedly fine after the game. He did go for a shoulder x-ray, but it seems like there's not going to be any issue with that. James Cook, big week for him. So for those of you that have been holding on to James Cook, hopefully he continues to do this for you. Denver and Los Angeles, Cortland Sutton continues to be a guy that's very, very fantasy viable, very safe. 3 receptions, 62 yards, scores the touchdowns. Javonte Williams has a firm grasp on the starter role. Samaje Perine is seeing some targets, but even this week, Javonte Williams ran 16 routes compared to Samaje Perine's 9. So, I mean, Javonte Williams is staying out on the field quite a bit. The Chargers did tweak their backfield. They moved things around. There was supposed to be this, Joshua Kelly's going to split carries with Austin Eckler, but it was Isaiah Spiller that saw more everything. Eckler saw 49 snaps, 33 routes run, 7 targets, and 10 carries, compared to Isaiah Spiller's 12, 5, 0, and 6, and Joshua Kelly's 7, 2, 0, 3. So Isaiah Spiller might be the backup right now to Austin Eckler, but Eckler did well. He did well. He ran for over 5 yards a carry, which was a big thing. 51 yards on 10 carries, scored a touchdown, added another 49 receiving yards on 5 receptions. It was good to see him get rolling again. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come down the stretch here. Justin Herbert being injured is going to be something that we'll keep an eye on. It is his index finger that is fractured, so he could be done for the year at this point. Dallas and Philly, not a whole lot to say here. Goddard did come back and play 90% of the snaps. No, he did not. What did he play this week? He only played 45 snaps, so that would have been right around 80%. They took him off the field quite a bit on run plays, probably because they don't want him blocking with that arm. But kind of what I said, like at the beginning of the week, right? I think a lot of people were asking about Dallas Goedert, and I was like, I think he's going to be a guy that is a decoy. I think he's going to be a decoy. And I think that's basically what he ended up being. He did play 45 snaps, but he only ran 26 routes and only had 4 targets. AJ Brown, okay day, could have been better. Tony Pollard and Rico Dowdle. What are we going to see down the stretch from them? Now, Tony Pollard played 59 snaps to only 23 from Rico Dowdle, so it's not like he's taking snaps away. But carries-wise, Dowdle saw 12 to Tony Pollard 16. So it does feel like when they're getting Rico Dowdle out there, they're wanting to get him some touches on the ground. So he ran the ball 11 times through the first 3 quarters. So that was almost double basically what it had been for a majority of other games coming up. They got the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Detroit Lions coming up. So Bills could be an okay week. Miami's tough. Detroit still tough against the run, even though they sucked this past week. And that's really going to do it for that information. As far as hits and misses for the week, let's go there real quick. I got to bring that up real fast. I think overall a pretty solid week once again. I think there was obviously some misses as usual, and we'll talk about those here real quick. So let me actually separate these two things. So at the running back position, Zeke finished number 1 overall. I wasn't expecting that out of him, but I had him all the way up at RB 22, and was a guy that I was like, we've got to start Ezekiel Elliott. He's going to have some risk, but we've got to start Ezekiel Elliott. So honestly, even though I had him at 22 and he finished at 1, I'm still taking that as a win this week. James Cook was at number 2. Where did I have James Cook? I had him at 18. I think I was still higher than the consensus on James Cook in this matchup. Breece Hall was the guy that I definitely missed on. Obviously had a big day through the air. Rachaad White finished at 4. I had him at 8, so within 4 spots there. Mixon was at 5. I had him at 6. Austin Eckler was at 6. Kind of missed on him there. I dropped him down to 14. Wasn't willing to sit him, but definitely was lowering expectations. Chase Brown finished 7. Nobody had Chase Brown at 7. Bijan, I ended up moving Bijan up to RB 13. He finished at 8. Javonte Williams finished his RB 9. I had him at RB 13. That's a win for me, in my opinion. I mean, you can say the Zeke ranking is not a win. I don't think everybody had him inside the top 20 because when I did my rankings, I had him higher than the consensus. So there were people that had him higher than the top 20, but I also was telling everybody to start him as well. So, I mean, you can say it's not a win all you want to. Oh, I see you complaining in the chat. Okay, so Christopher is just here to complain. That makes sense. Never mind. But yeah, I told everybody to pick him up and play him. So I'm absolutely. Dogs that says nobody had Zeke top. Okay, so that's fine. We can disagree there. Christian McCaffrey was at 10. I had him at 1. Whatever. Everyone has him at 1. Jahmyr Gibbs, I had at 16. Finished at 11. Travis Etienne finished at 12. I had him at 17. Still was a guy I was starting. There was a few people I told to sit him based on guys that were inside like the top 10. I mean, I definitely missed on Zach Moss. I had him at RB4 after Pacheco ended up going out. I had Alvin Kamara at 3. He didn't end up reaching that. Devon Chan hasn't played yet. Kyron Williams, I had at 9. He finished at 14. David Montgomery was a miss. He was at 12, and he finished much lower than that. Yeah, everyone missed on Zach Moss. McKinnon ended up having a touchdown. I had James Cook. I already talked about that at 18. Outside of that, Jerick McKinnon finished at 18. We told a lot of people to start him. So not a ton of upside, but enough that if you played him, at least you got something decent out of him. Really outside of that, like biggest misses, again, Zach Moss would have been like the biggest one at this point. Jacobs, but he ended up getting hurt. Tony Pollard, I had at 11. He finished at 13. So, I mean, overall running backs. Yeah. You started Roshan over Singletary. Is that a miss? Absolutely. But why would you have started Roshan over Singletary? I wouldn't drop Zach Moss as of yet. I would not do that. He's playing more snaps than anybody. It depends on what the rest of your roster is, but at least hold on to him for depth in case you have an injury. So, I mean, honestly, at the running back position, I feel like I did really solid this week, to be honest with you. Barkley still has to play tonight. I had him inside my top 10. Chan has to play tonight. I had him inside my top 10 as well. So we'll see what they end up doing tonight. But, I mean, let me know. Give me the thumbs up. Give me the thumbs up. But Zeke is an impossible situation. I mean, I think here the stretch, you've got to play him. You've got to play him down the stretch here. You have to. He's just getting so many touches with no Ramondre Stevenson. And that was the big reason that we were running with it. So, thumbs up in the chat for a good week at the running back position. Perfect. Let's talk about tight ends. The most volatile positions. Mostert tonight, I have Mostert at like 19, I think is what I had him at. 21. I definitely think it's going to be a Devon Chan night. I really do. I think Mostert still scores a touchdown, but I think a Chan sees the bulk of the touches. I had TJ Hawkinson at number 1 and he finished at 16. Nobody was going to sit him, but I had Travis Kelce at number 2. He finished at number 8. Sam Laporta at number 3. Not even inside the top 20. George Kittle I had at 4. He finished at 5. Jake Ferguson I had at 5. He finished at 10. I took Cole Kmet out, I took Taysom Hill out when he was gone. So, Cole Kmet at 7. He ended up finishing at 12. Evan Ingram I had at 8. He finished at 1. Was still playing him, still starting him. David Njoku I had at 11. He finished at 2. So both those guys were inside the top 12. They were both starts. Isaiah Likely, I tried to cool a little bit on later in the week because of the stupid weather, man. I hate dealing with the weather, man. I had Isaiah Likely at 10, though, this week. And when I did my rankings, that was one of the higher rankings for Isaiah Likely. I think at that time I was 7 spots higher than the consensus. Now, I did tell a few people, I think I told 3 people to start Brevin Jordan over him. That's definitely my bad. But again, reading the stupid weather before the game, man, it's like, oh, it's going to be a monsoon, and this is going to happen, and it's going to be downpouring the entire time. And it didn't end up being nearly as bad as what the weather said it was going to be. So that's it. It is what it is. Had him inside the top 10. If you played him, awesome. If you were one of the people that sat him because I told you to go with somebody, yeah, I apologize for that. Definitely missed on that one for sure. But I had Gerald Everett at 14. I mean, he finished at 20. Dallas Goedert I had at 16 and was telling people probably not to play him. He finished outside that. So, I mean, overall, I had Kyle Pitts at 17. I missed on Kyle Pitts. For sure. Oh, man. So, yeah, that's it. Overall, I think really the worst part of the week was the pick'ems, and that was just, man, the pick'ems is tough because the way that we're doing the pick'ems right now is we're doing, I don't use my gut on the pick'ems. I don't use my research on the pick'ems. We're doing the pick'ems based on sports book odds, which if you submit tons of tickets throughout the week, it does really work for you because you end up winning more than you lose. This week was really bad. This week was really bad. Last week was not good. Money wise, based off my picks throughout the year, which I play all my picks. So you guys see it I'm putting in the tickets as we're talking about it. So you see that I play my picks. I'm still up, quite a bit this season, money-wise. So if you've been playing my picks, you definitely are up money-wise right now. Pick-wise, still at, even after this bad week, still at 55% on the season, which we've talked about this a couple of times. When you're doing gambling, betting, things of that nature, if you're submitting your tickets correctly, there's going to be people who are lower than 50%. Alex from Odds Jam, who's probably one of the most successful bettors in terms of line and player props that I've seen. Dude's up over 100K this year, and he said that, he hits on about 40% of his picks. So I hit on 15% more of my picks than what he does, and he's up money, and so are we. So, that's super unfortunate, and I think there's a lot of people out there that don't maybe really understand the gambling aspect of things and how gambling is definitely going to be way more fluid and up and down than what fantasy sports is. And, if you're getting super upset about losing money in gambling, you shouldn't be gambling. Okay. You shouldn't be gambling. I just have to make that known once more. If you're losing money, don't do it. If you're spending more than you can afford to lose, don't do it. If you're getting mad, you don't do it. Don't gamble. If you can't handle the up and downs, do not gamble. It could be the worst thing for you because you end up chasing way too much. All right. So, and we've done a lot more content this year based on pick'ems and stuff like that. So it's one of those messages that I want to continue to share because I also know that there is a lot of people with us this year that are betting a lot more because of our picks and stuff. So yeah, those Vegas hotels didn't pop up on their own. So, I know there was a couple of comments already about me personally having a super bad week, but we're betting off the sports books. So if I had a bad week, then the sports books have an awful week as well. So Kurt Warner did tell us not to chase our losses. Yeah, definitely don't do it. Do not chase your losses. I have definitely been a victim of that a couple of times where I've had a bad day and I'm like, let's put in like a decent ticket to try and make up our money. I didn't do that last night, though. I did not chase my losses last night. Jordan, it's a Chan over Henry if you want more upside. Henry will be safer. A Chan will have more upside. I'm still going to have a Chan in the top 10. Derrick Henry is just on the outside of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this show. I kept it at 41 minutes. Perfect. That's where I want it to be. We went through and talked about a lot of everything that happened for week 14. We talked about hits and misses for the week, all of that good stuff. Hopefully everybody had a successful week this week. Hopefully everybody is in the playoffs and looking forward to week 15. We'll be here week 15. We'll be here week 16. We'll be here week 17. And for those of you out there that play in a fantasy championship, we will be here week 18 as well, just in case. But do not forget, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere this offseason. We do fantasy and NFL related content all off season long. We have some fun ideas for videos that we're going to possibly do this off season as well that y'all might like too. Don't go anywhere. Stick around. Don't unsubscribe. Don't leave. We have a lot of people that unsubscribe during the off season because they don't play or they don't look at fantasy football or anything. Don't unsubscribe. Stick around all off season long. I'm encouraging you all to do that because the off season content that we put out can make you even more successful than the in season content we put out. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to head on out of here. Peace out, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy. Have a great rest of your Monday. And I'll see you all on the Waiver Wire show, which we'll post in the next 10 minutes. See you later, everybody.
When the game on the line, you can't throw it and you can't beat